Hello and welcome live in Alert on the North Side of the Dirt. It's me, D-Real. And this is Comments and Review Wednesday Deep Dive. And we're going to go deep into classic What If tonight. I'm talking about the 1977 run of What If. Now, while that, I think it came out 88, 89 run to about 99, that run was magnificent as well. It brought us some classic What If titles just like this one did. And if I had to say anything about that 90s What If, overall, the artwork was, I ain't gonna say better, but caught my attention more than the original series. So, that being said, though, we might have with this 1977 What If run. Matter of fact, I got like the first 23 issues here in I have the TPBs. Complete collection. This one is issues 1 through 12. This one is issues 13 through 23. So, that's what we're going to be fucking with tonight. But I was also able to go to the LCS and pick up a couple of my new titles. So, we'll be getting into the new titles next go round. Yeah. Bruh, this one right here, Dynamite shines. I am very, very happy with the way they are writing Dynamite in this comic. He ain't like no goofy screw up like he was in the cartoon. Dynamite in this comic, he's more like the Vision if he was a sociopath. I guess that's Ultron. But you know what I'm saying? He's still robotic, but he's got a little, you know what I'm saying? He got a little bit of emotion to him, and the emotion is fun to see. And I like the way things get resolved. Put it like that. Because trust and believe, there are some things that need resolving this issue, and trust me, it's Dynamite, not Blue Falcon, that resolves the majority of them. I picked this up. It tells the story of the Joker. Mr. Grimm, if you will, is the Joker. There's a tale connected to the Joker per se. And ain't really nothing funny about the Joker. This about absolute Joker. Ain't nothing funny about him. He's a whole problem. Also, I grabbed it. See, this is the first tie-in that's got me pulled in. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. DCKO got me pulled in. I'm wanting to know more. So, in that spirit, I picked up this side battle from round 1. Superman versus Captain Atom. Because I remember when Superman and Captain Atom had a fight in Justice League Unlimited. And Superman put it on his head. But Captain Atom has recently, they went back to his, I think, Charleston roots. It was a Charleston comics he appeared in at first. Yeah, he's pretty OP. And I'm interested to see how OP Captain Atom fares against the most OP guy in their universe. So, yeah, like I said, it'd be fun to see. I am getting back on my Spawn thing. So I picked up 370 and 371, and it features my favorite Spawn character. Ha, it's your boy. So he shows up for a couple issues. So that it'll be a fun romp. I will when I get acclimated, you know what I'm saying? Because I kind of fell off my Spawn collecting and I got to get back on, and I want to catch up with what's going on recently, because I know he done made the Scorched and all of that, and they're kind of like their own thing over to the side. But I want to get a couple back, maybe go back maybe like 10, 15 issues or so, and get caught up on the Spawn tip, and I can start bringing that to y'all as well, because I can't tell you what's going down if I don't know what's going down. Make sense? Makes sense. All right. For my collecting purposes and my collecting purposes only, the first full appearance of Ghostmaker, Batman issue 102. All right. He has trained with some of the same teachers as Batman. He has mastered some of the same martial arts as Batman. So he a whole problem. And just to conclude the story, I picked up issue 103 as well. See, a 2-part street level story. And I ain't invested in Batman like that. I'm invested in Ghostmaker. I like Ghostmaker. I want to learn more about Ghostmaker, and I will probably pick up other Ghostmaker appearances. But let's get down for what we came here for. What mine if, right? Okay. All right. Quick question for the Rock With Me Nation, and y'all can drop it in here in the comments. What was your first experience with the 1977 What If run? What was the first What If comic that you ever saw in that run? Ever. And I ain't talking about the ad that they had in the comic books about What If. I'm talking about the actual solid in your hands or on the rack at 7-Eleven comic you saw of What If. What was your first What If? Sound off on me, Rock With Me Nation. Mario King in the building, as always. President of the Black Panther fan group. I'm here, sir. Ronnie J is in the building. What up, Ronnie J? What's happening? I'm getting ready to edutain. That's what I'm finna do. And my dog, Theo, what's up, bruh? Yeah, the books came in, dog, and so y'all know y'all got some reviews this weekend. Also, tune in for the Thursday Live where I talk about comics. Plus, it's some other things going on that's on my mind, and I'm going to talk about it just because I need to talk about it. But anyway, what was my first experience with What If? Let me find it. I am so glad you asked. Frank Robbins was doing some art. Y'all know how I feel about Frank Robbins. Oh, goodness. Here it is. This one right here. What if someone else besides Peter Parker had been bitten by the radioactive spider? That was my first experience with What If. I think this cat, I was in the school. This cat had a what if, he was reading a what if comic book, and I saw it and I was like, what's that? And you know what I'm saying? And it said a stunning saga of an alternate reality. That was across the top of every what if comic because it took them a little while to explain, you know, like, you know how like they had that little synopsis right there in the top, you know, between, you know, the top of the page and then the splash page, you know, the image, the splash page, they had like a little, matter of fact, I think they started doing it later on. No, they didn't. But y'all know what I'm talking about. With those. Anyways, Spider-Man. Rick Hoberg was the artist on What If Spider-Man, what if someone else besides Peter Parker? Basically, it says on the cover, let's just get this out the way. On the cover, it says, what if someone else besides Spider-Man had been bitten by the radioactive spider? Then inside the comic, it says, what if someone else had become the Amazing Spider-Man? Which, in retrospect, makes more sense. See how the message back in the day in the bullpen, things getting crossed up. But we're not dwelling on that. Let's press on. The Watcher always appeared in What If. What If was his comic. I liked Jeffrey Wright as the voice of the Watcher. That's a cool pick. Now, on the other hand, there are people with just as prolific a voice that could have been the voice of the Watcher. Because when I think about the Watcher speaking, I get more of a Orson Welles kind of vibe. I get more of a Jeff Bridges kind of vibe for the Watcher. Anyway, it just a voice that that sounds like he's been around for a long time and heard some shit. You know what I mean? And this is a cat that sound like anyway. So instead of Peter Parker, the first person we dealing with is Flash Thompson. So in this universe, Flash Thompson went to the scientific experiment that ended up giving him, the powers. So he's still an a-hole. You know what I mean? He's still basically a-hole Flash Thompson, but he's still a good cat. You know what I'm saying? Essentially. And instead of having to jump up on a wall when a car is coming, Flash just threw that all out the way entirely. I mean, which tracks, because in the movies, he's stopping buses. Well, not buses, but cars in general. He's strong enough. He could if he wanted to. Stopping trains and freaking barges. So yeah, I don't think it would have been no issue for him to do any of that. But anyway, he does the Crusher Hogan thing. You know what I'm saying? And he wrestles Crusher Hogan and he kills him. Remember, I got you in the ring for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime. Bonesaw is ready. That guy. I mean, that archetype anyway. But Flash ended up grabbing the cat because he didn't know his own strength. Right away, I'm seeing, this comic book they ain't above killing people wholesale, just like it happens in the real world. People get killed. And that was a theme that stuck throughout What If's existence was sometimes, all the time, some people you like might get murked. And sometimes the character the story is about might get murked. You see what I'm saying? So that made you, and because it was another universe, a stunning tale of an alternate reality, you could enjoy it, and you wouldn't be mad about, oh, they did this, oh, they didn't do them right, why they got to kill off my character, why they got to kill off my favorite. There wasn't none of that, because they could come back in the story next month or a couple months later or a year later. You see him again. This ain't the only Spider-Man story, because there are different stories about Spider-Man, and every What If story takes place in an alternate reality of that story. So, in my opinion, What If never should have stopped. Because as long as there are comic books, it should be a what if. Think about it. Well, what we got now? We got Blood Hunt. What if Varney had triumphed during Blood Hunt? Wouldn't that be fun? And that happened a lot in What If. Probably one of my favorite What If stories from the 1977 run of all time, and I own it. It's somewhere around here. What if the Avengers had become pawns of Korvac? In the end, Korvac ended up using the ultimate nullifier to wipe out the entire universe. Eternity was worried about it. You know what I'm saying? It just snuffed everything. That was the end of the comic book. And watch, you're telling us, sometimes this shit happens. Another one. What if Dark Phoenix had lived? Universe gets wiped out again. See, What If introduced us to the concept of sometimes shit gets fucked up. Okay? Sometimes the hero don't win. Sometimes folks just get killed. There was another What If recently. Silver Surfer as Carnage. That's a whole problem right there. That's a whole problem. Mr. 70s run. Man, it gave us some bangers. Now, here's one I thought was interesting. What if the world knew that Daredevil is blind? Now, not one I found overly entertaining, because I wasn't a huge Daredevil fan. But I would think that if the world knew Daredevil was blind, long as I don't tell you about the radar sense, so what? I mean, how could my foe take advantage of me being blind when me being blind isn't a handicap for me thanks to my radar sense. But there's a cameo. And they got it in, there's a cameo with Spider-Man. And him and Spider-Man take out Electro. But he redesigns his costume. But folks know because it's in the paper. They put it in the Daily Bugle. Yeah, that was blind. Like, word? Does it even matter? So now it's the owl who finds out, because the owl is the one who asks the question. Well, if this mug is blind, how is he able to navigate things? How is he able to get around? How is he able to? And so he just sits and observes him. Oh, he's got some kind of echolocation. All right, I could fuck that up with sound. Matter of fact, I do you one better. I'll give him conflicting sounds in a close proximity, which will make it harder for him to discern, and he'll have to concentrate more, and my guys can beat his ass. And that's precisely what happens. But he still manages to win despite that. So, bottom line, just like I said, what if Daredevil is blind is just another Daredevil comic book? So to answer the question, what if Daredevil was blind? The answer is so. Because what ends up happening is he just retires and becomes the DA of New York. Not a bad ending for Daredevil, right? I think more than anything else, that it is more, they know he's blind, they know he Matt Murdock, so they fucking with Karen, kidnapping her and trying to get at her all the time. But there's never the Kingpin interaction. Ronnie. No, okay, I was going to say. I think my older cousin had If Doom Was a Good Guy or something. Yes, that is in these volumes. It's called What If Dr. Doom Were a Hero? Yes. Ronnie J say, hey, D-Real, I have to admit, I've never read a What If comic book specifically from back in the 70s. I wasn't around yet. And my response to you, Ronnie J, is you didn't have to be around. Now you know. So, yeah, if you got an LCS that has back issues, bam. Ask them where the what ifs are from the 1970s, pick you some, and read them. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Ronnie J also says, I think Daredevil's villains with no doubt about him already just by his mask. Well, I feel like the way they're depicted, the way they're drawn, it isn't covered. He just got like eye screens on. And so you can't really get a good look at his eyes, so you don't know he's blind anyway. Especially since, you know, if you can't see my eyes, you don't know if I'm reacting to you or if I'm using radar or echolocation to see you. Can't see that through goggles or like, just eye coverings. So, and Anasi's in the building. What's popping? Mr. Trickster. We just talking what ifs, 1977 version. Oh, here's one I thought was really cool. What if the Avengers had fought evil during the 1950s? Which I think is weird because it's like Them ain't even the Avengers. They just let me find every character that was in timely comics in the 1950s and put them together in a group and call them the Avengers. I liked this grouping of characters together better as the Agents of Atlas. This is where you first saw the Agents of Atlas, or the original version of the Agents of Atlas. But anyway, the popular Avengers from the 1970s have a view screen that they can look at alternate dimensions through. That sounds a little omniscient. In a way, I can view other dimensions, but other dimensions cannot view me. Okay, so anyway, they are viewing this universe where, you know, some of the things were the same, but other things were different. And we got my man, you know, Jimmy Woo. You still got Jimmy. Remember Jimmy Woo, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Jimmy Woo still around. But Jimmy Woo gets in trouble and he gets some help because he getting jumped by this biker gang, and 3D Man pulls up. Not the Delroy Garrett 3D Man, but I think his name is Hal Chandler. This 3D Man. Oops, there you go. That 3D Man. He puts on a pair of 3D glasses and gets 3 times the speed, strength, and stamina of a normal man. So that might help, but I don't know. How strong was the guy from the jump? Well, strong now where he can pick up a motorcycle and throw it at people. So yeah, I'd say pretty strong. Also, you had Marvel Boy as one of the members of this Avengers group, but who eventually becomes the Crusader, a bad guy created by George Perez during his run on the Fantastic Four in the 70s. Fantastic Four number 164 and 165 from on the original run, if I'm not mistaken. Also, too, there is Gorilla Man, a man who got turned into a gorilla through a curse, but he still retains his human intelligence. And he joins the squad. And then you have Namora, the Sea Woman, or the Sea, yeah, that's what they call her, Namora, the Sea Woman, with 3D Man, and they dig up Robot Man. Just basically a robot. Just it really looks very 1950s. That ain't the most 1950s looking ass robot you ever seen. I don't know what to tell you. But then there's Venus, and she satisfies the, oh, there's a god on this team thing. And she has the power to make people love her. Little enchantress like for my taste, but you know, whatever. Anyway, this robot activates and it wants to kill everybody, but she overpowers it with the power of love. That's a really My Little Pony type thing to be able to do. Very Care Bearish. Anywho, they all get together and they are the squad. And then there's a brief synopsis of all the characters. and how they Chuck Chandler and Hal Chandler. One of them's trapped in the glasses, and one of them, it's a really, really weird origin story. But anyways, there they are. The Avengers. That is the weirdest looking version of the Avengers I have ever seen. Yeah, so they end up fighting some really weird sounding 50s characters that are actually from the 50s. You got, and you can tell from the names, Skullface, and Electro, and Video, the Great Video. A laboratory explosion gave me X-ray vision and the power to kill with my prolonged stare. No doubt overexposure to radiation. And the Cold Warrior, who's kind of like a poor man's Iceman. Or no, I wouldn't even go so far as to say that. I'd say more like the Blizzard. And so they all tunnel. Well, they're all henchmen for the Yellow Claw, who is a very stereotypical looking bad guy. But there are the bad guys that they're facing off against. They look cheesy AF as well. But bottom line, bro, check out their battle cry. Not Avengers Assemble. Go, Avengers, go. Go, Avengers, go. I guess that must have been like a E-Bombay back in the 50s. I don't know, but cheesy. I agree, Kamoyo. Like I said, this partner of mine brought this comic book to school, and it was like, I don't even know who none of them people is. You know what I mean? That's where I was with it. Like, why'd you even buy that comic book? We don't know who none of them people is. And I see the Avengers, but they calling yeah. So it was hard. There's Video hitting 3D man with his prolonged. I guess he only had to be looking at him. He just need to be looking at you. Radiation exposure, just like I said. Yeah, this is. Yeah, bruh. Yeah. Bruh, I die. The first appearance of a female Thor was in the pages of What If. Yes, even before Storm. It's the 70s. Storm didn't take on Mjolnir till the 80s. Now, do you think Rick Hoberg draws a better and her name was Thordis. Who wrote this comic book? Don Glut. Shame on you, Don Glut. You were not even trying to think. But much the same way is Jane Foster. And Don Blake falls, and Jane Foster is the one who goes down to get his cane because he drops it, and she ends up going into the cave like he went into the cave way back in Journey into Mystery. And she finds a stick on the whole thing. It even looks the same. If you've ever seen that issue of Journey into Mystery when he becomes Thor, I saw it because I used to have like a Trapper Keeper that had like the folders that had the superheroes on the front of it, and it would tell a story, and it wouldn't be necessarily the story that went with whatever was on the cover of that folder. Holla at me in the comments if y'all remember what I'm talking about. They were made by Mead, MEAD, them folders. Yeah. But Tortoise. See, there right there. Tortoise? That's the best you could do was Tortoise. And much like he did, she fought the Stone Men of Saturn. The Cronins, I believe, is what that race is called. Nasi say you you haven't heard the term Trapper Keeper in ages. You know what? I was in the store the other day and I saw a Trapper Keeper. Oh my God, they're so dull and boring looking now. I'm like, wow. Because a matter of fact, I think my kids got a Trapper Keeper, and it's like they just don't have the same allure anymore. Not like when we had Trapper Keepers was a whole damn event. You know, they had the ones with like sports stuff on them, and they had like little girly shit on them, and then they had the Marvel Comics Jones. It was just like the little folder you open up, and they had like slot right here, slot right there, and on the slot right there, like where the lip of it, where it holds the papers in, it had like a comic strip that went across the bottom part of the folder, and then you flipped it over on the back, and it finished, you know, like however many, it was probably like just enough to put like a page on the back of it. But they would pick some weird, like, I wish I could find those somewhere, but they would pick like some weird, it's just, I guess, in retrospect, now that I look at it, the shit was cover art. It wasn't to tell your ass a story. We the people who made those folders probably didn't know nothing about comics, so they was like, just find some pictures to put on the back of these folders, and then we're gonna put a comic book cover on the front of the folder. That should work. Them little bastards shit like that, and we did. I know that they had a Fantastic Four one, a Captain America one, of course, a Thor one, and I think it's like the cover or the comic book that Arvell Jones worked on Thor on. I would have to look to verify to make sure. But yeah. And Thordis has got to deal with Loki and all of that fun shit. But over time, Jane Foster found a way to carry Mjolnir with her instead of a walking stick. Get ready. Are you ready? Instead of a walking stick, Mjolnir is disguised as a hairbrush. That's not so strange to see a woman pull out a hairbrush and then slap that mud across the ground and turn into Thordis. Yeah. So yeah. Basically, she takes on some of the adventures, you know, that like Thor took on in the early Journey of Mystery comics. If you know anything about it, I don't think you read those Journey into Mysteries. Most people haven't. I've seen certain issues, specific issues of Journey into Mystery before it became the Thor comic, but that's long time ago. Long time ago. But basically, that's it. I mean, eventually, she's in a Ragnarok type situation where, you know, she's dealing with Man God. Yeah, that Man God. So She's showing her flex. You know what I mean? It take her and Odin to stop him, but she ends up showing her flex for sure, for sure. But it's all in all not a terrible issue, but the one after it is. I mean, it's fun and cute. I ain't gonna say terrible, but I'm gonna tell you, Stan Lee as Mr. Fantastic, Jack Kirby the Thing. Sal Brodsky, Marvel's vice president at the time. And Flo Steinberg as the Invisible Girl. This was before they started calling her the Invisible Woman. Ironically, this comic book is written and drawn by Jack Kirby. Weird. Very weird, but as you can see, it has that Kirby-esque look to it, so that right away when you see it, you're like, oh, that's Jack Kirby art. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. Jack Kirby is a whole concept by itself. Case in point. Can't nobody draw a picture like that but Jack Kirby. But the crazy part about it, this could have something to do with the Inhumans. This could have something to do with Wakanda. This could have something to do with the Eternals. This could have something to do with the New Gods from the 70s. Jack Kirby's art, no matter what it is, it always looks the same. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but come on, man. That's why I say it's a concept whose time has come. You can't rock it like Jack Kirby used to rock it no more. You know what I'm saying? So, long story short, somebody sent them something to the bullpen that gave off cosmic rays and turned them into the Fantastic Four. They fight Namor. They fight Skrulls. And that's pretty much it. At least for me. Oh, and this is the comic cover that you always see a parody of. Popular in pop culture, and they replaced the Jones with a James. And then that dialogue says something about something being super freaky. So yeah. What if is a whole social event? What if Rick James, what if Rick Jones became the Hulk? It would be just like the other Hulk, except at the end, he would put on nega bands and trade atoms with Captain Marvel. I could see writing a whole story about a Rick Jones, Rick Jones Hulk. Volume 2 brings us stories like I actually read this when it came out. It's pretty cool. He ends up shacking up with this chick. and, and he's shocked by guns, but I think it's this same Conan that we end up seeing in what's that comic? Savage Avengers. Because Conan act like he been there before. And it's drawn by John Buscema, the actual artist on Conan the Barbarian in the 70s. So it looks like an authentic Conan story because it's drawn by the Conan artist at the time. John Buscema did a lot of comics in the 70s at the same time. And there was a lot going on. And he ends up exposed to the magic of I don't know what the guy's name is, but he is this sorcerer. Oh, here he is. They fell into some vapors. And in them vapors, he ends up falling through time and into modern day New York. So he on the street about to pull out his sword. They like, what in the fuck? Dude, naked dude out here with a sword. So, sees a couple cosplayers. They end up running away. The cops see him. They start shooting at him. He ends up getting on the building tops and running away. And then this chick pulls up in a cab and he thinks the cab is a monster and he hits that shit with his sword. And the chick gets out and she like, what the hell are you doing in my cab? And he like, I'm sorry. But then she looking at him like, you look good. Get in my cab. And takes him back, like I said, takes her back to his apartment. And exactly what you think gonna happen at the apartment ends up happening at the apartment because Conan is Conan. And Conan do what Conan do. Conan do what Conan do. He busting it down already, and in the middle of her busting it down, he like, hey, I'm Conan. They introducing each other. Tell you, boy, Conan do what Conan do, boy. And Conan beating people up. He taking on a whole room full of, you know what I'm saying? He punching. Bruh. That's what he looked like before, just so you know. And after Conan hit his ass. Damn. I don't want to get hit by Conan. He grabbing ones and just tossing them around. Yeah. Now, Conan would be a great example of peak human strength. Lifting up a Volkswagen. That's plausible. That could happen. That's within his strength area. So, long story short, Conan ends up going on a series of adventures and foiling robberies and shit like that. And long story short, him and the old girl live happily ever after. More or less. But eventually he ends up getting back to his own era. So That's what would happen if Conan the Barbarian walked the earth. Hey, look, you know what I like about this trade paperback? Original ads. And Micronauts, anyone? Bruh, I need to get me some 3D head sculpts. I need to get me some head sculpts printed out, man. I need to do me some Micronauts. I want to do them in 6-inch, but I can do 7-inch too. Anyways, yes, he did. And every day you see him, he is not giving none. So Groovy, what's good? You up in the building? You up in the building? You up in the building? We chilling. We chilling. We doing this what if thing. I'm edutaining because that's what I do. Hit the likes if you feeling this video. Hit the likes. So I guess the answer to my question was none, because didn't none of y'all read what if? Because earlier I had asked, what was your first interaction with? Hey, if you need to, say this right here. Be Real with D Real was my first interaction with the 1970s. What if? That's okay. That's what I'm here for. I will be that source for you. Anyways, as the art was my biggest, because it fluctuated. Some days you'd have great artists, and then there was like artists who I feel like was struggling as artists, and like they gave them a chance. And what if, like, okay, ain't nobody feeling your art no more, but we're gonna go ahead and let you do this book, and if you do good on this book and people buy it, we'll see about hooking you up with something else. But I feel like that was the case, but then John Buscema got a little run, you know what I'm saying? And they let him kind of run with it. And so again, at that time too, if I'm not mistaken, Buscema was doing Nova, the man called Nova. And so again, imagine, because I collect Nova, I got all 25 issues of that bug. Imagine my shock and delight when this comic book came out. What if Nova had been for other people? New Warriors, anybody? Hey, Nova been around that long. Nova is almost a 50-year-old character. In fact, Nova will be 50 years old this year. Impressive. Anyways, basically, what I liked about this Nova story, and when it said what if someone else had become Nova, sometimes the people who became Nova weren't good guys. This dude's a bad guy. At least one of these was a bad guy. This woman's husband got murdered on the street. She got hit with that bolt, became Nova, and went after him. Ain't it interesting how the emblems is anyway. And it turned out the person that was responsible for that happening, the kingpin, and she knocked dog shit out of him. and sent him on his way. But everybody wasn't feeling her. You know, she ended up running afoul of the Fantastic Four. But the Fantastic Four, like they always do, they end up helping. And then we get that story where the Skrulls, remember when the Skrulls, well, you don't remember, but that was a story in the 70s when the Skrulls had kidnapped the Fantastic Four and hit him with an agent ray. But at around that same time period, the Fantastic Four was having an adventure with the Xandarians, and that was kind of like the farewell to Nova because his comic book was getting canceled. And they tied off that story in a nice, neat little bow in the pages of Fantastic Four. Skrulls were involved. Xandarians were involved. And then we got a second story where are brothers Nova. Oh, look like I'm gonna get another Nova in color. Yeah, what you say? Shut your mouth. You shouldn't have showed me that. So yeah, what's his name? His name is Jesse. What a perfectly African American name. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Jesse. And Jesse get hit with the power, bruh. And Jesse turns into... Look at that. Black Nova, y'all. Black Nova. Don't tell me nothing about Black History Month no more. Black Nova. He's race swapped. Anyways, yep, I am going to make a custom Black Nova. Y'all should have showed me. You should have showed me. He got bit by a spider. And in this universe, when Peter Parker get bit by a spider, he get crippled. He can't walk no more. So, bottom line, long story short, Peter Parker ends up becoming Nova. And in the last story, Nova is a bad guy. You don't believe me? Look at all these bad guys he's chilling with. So, there's never really any actual fighting amongst any bad guys. I think all of these not heroes and bad guys, but these heroes are like, these villains are fighting like who's the top. And Nova come in like, I'm him. Banging on Doom. You know what I mean? So Nova wasn't, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't no punk. Until he ran up against the Sphinx. And the Sphinx offed his ass. So that was what was going on with What If. What If ran from 77 to about 83, I want to say. Think about 70, 80 something issues all in all. But don't give me the line. Let me pull up the particulars for you guys. If 1977 run. 77 to 84. Okay, I was off by 1 year. And it had, hang on, my Wi-Fi acting funny. How many issues that it ran for? Oh, damn. Thought it ran for more than that. I guess it didn't. I thought it ran 47 issues. I thought it was more issues of that original run than that. 47 issues. Wow. Okay. Dope, get diggity, dope. Yes, they were dropping nuggets, Theo. What if Spidey got taken over by the black suit was I think it was like the third or fourth comic in the series. Yeah. That was a good one. That was good. And that was another one of them ones a lot of people getting dealt with. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the symbiote, when you really think about it, that's a problem and a half if you let that get out of control. You know what I mean? Because once that symbiote start going ham, ain't nobody safe. But you know what? Maybe next week when we get together and do this again, we can talk about that 88 to 98 run, because those comics were classic, but for some reason all of them comics is still fresh in my head because I collected the 88 run more faithfully than I did the 77 run. I would I would just collect the 77 run, whatever what if caught my eye. I wasn't just like, let me get what if, because I know it was some what ifs that just flat out sucked and I didn't want to even be bothered with. But that second run, I was feeling all that because they were making what ifs about stories that were happening in real time. You know what I'm saying? There were what ifs about Inferno. There were what ifs about Guardians of the Galaxy. There were what ifs about, what was that? What else was hot at the time? The Avengers. There was a few Avengers what ifs. And then the X-Men. And then they had that one, what if Wolverine had become Lord of the Vampires? That one was dope. Because what ended up happening in that what if was Wolverine had knocked out Doctor Strange, and then before he could get a chance to do anything, they just took him and threw his body in a pit of alligators. And since they threw his body in a pit of alligators, he got his astral form, was able to get out, and his astral form ended up occupying Frank Castle's body. And so you had Frank Castle running around with a cloak of levitation, and the kind of weapons that Frank Castle have, they was all holy weapons. And so basically Frank Castle was doing a blade in that what if. So it was good. And then when he faced off with Wolverine, because Wolverine was all the hotness in the 80s, he did what Wolverine does. But and there was a lot of memorable what ifs from that run. And if you like, we can talk about those next week. I appreciate the folks pulling up tonight for the Wednesday deep dive. I hope this was enjoyable for you and you got something out of it. Or if you didn't get nothing out of it, it took you back if you remembered. Either way, I'm here for y'all. What y'all want to do is cool with me. I'm cool with what's going on. Now, make sure y'all pull up tomorrow. Same real time, same real channel. And we will be doing the Thursday live where we're going to cover a couple social issues, cover a couple sports issues, cover, the issues that I've been on my mind. And of course, the usual comic and action figure stuff. Y'all make sure y'all pull up for that. And of course, Friday, Theo and myself will be going all the way live with the vibe. That's it for now, y'all. But fret not, I'll be coming at you with another one of them other ones. And until then, y'all be good.